Hey there, Thriller fans. This is Ethan Cross. I'm coming to you today from my theater room, and we're doing a answer video for a session that we're going to be calling Ask Ethan Anything. And this is going to be our first kind of episode of trying this out and seeing how it works. So hopefully we don't have any technical difficulties, and we can get through this first session. We've actually had a lot of really good questions. In fact, we've had so many good questions come in from you guys that we're going to push this back into this first episode into 2 parts. So we're going to be posting this first part where I'm going to answer some questions, and then later on in the week I'm going to do the second part for you. So we'll go ahead and dive right into it. The first question we have is from Twitter. It's from a user called patuka.star. And this person's question was, when are Marcus and Ackerman hitting the big or small screen? Well, Patuka, I don't have any definitive information on that. We've definitely had some interest in the past from a major movie producer who was interested in turning my book, The Shepard, into a movie. But, you know, really that's kind of a more up in the air kind of world than publishing. There's a lot more factors that a lot more, tumblers that have to fall into place in order for those projects to get off the ground. And of course you're talking about a lot of money, a lot more money than what it costs to release a book. The biggest part with that's writing the book, which is all on me. So, long story short, there are no current plans to do anything with the Shepard series. Now that could change really any time in the near future. I actually have a project that I'm working on now that would involve a movie written by me, but this is all pie in the sky, big dreaming type of things right now. So I'll keep you posted on that kind of thing as it develops, but as of right now, I'm sorry, there aren't going to be any Ethan Cross books immediately coming to the screen or out into theaters. But hopefully, with this new project I'm working on and a couple of production companies I'm involved in, hopefully we'll see some of that come to fruition. Maybe within the next year, and from there, that could really open some doors into maybe we would be able to see a series come from my Shepard books. Personally, I don't know honestly how I would want it to be done. This is a little bit of an add-on to your question, but I don't know if I prefer a limited TV series, like a 10 to 20 episode series or a film. So, I mean, they both have their advantages from a storytelling standpoint and a marketing standpoint. But it would certainly be nice to see one of my books up, on the big screen. But that's also not that big of a deal for me. The main thing for me is just getting the stories out there where you guys can enjoy them in some form. So thank you, Patuka, for your question. I'm going to go ahead and move on now to a question from this. Actually, a couple of people asked the same question, so I'm going to answer it together. First one was Bill Howard, our good Facebook friend, and Chris Chi also wanted to know, do you plan on doing any more books in the Blind Justice and Spectrum series? So, well, Bill, Chris, that is also kind of a difficult question. I planned both of those to be the first in a series. And I think you can, as you read the books, you can kind of tell that they were meant to be the first in a series. But the problem with that is you never know whether the first one's going to take off, whether it's, really going to launch the series, or whether it's just going to kind of be just that standalone kind of entity. Now, here's the cool thing with my books, and what I'm doing that has kind of made it where we get to bring some of those characters back in different ways. What I'm doing is, I'll have to give you a little bit of a behind-the-scenes look on where things are right now. The Shepard series is going to end with book 6, The Taker. Let me just say, not everybody makes it out alive of book 6. Now, there will be characters that do make it out, and they are going to be moving on in a new series that's a spin-off of the Shepard series. So, kind of the same feel, but I think you'll understand why even the feel will probably change a little bit based on the characters who are spinning off here. Now, one of the characters from who is going to be prominently featured in the spin-off series is Samuel Carter, and he's high up in the FBI and handles a lot of the black ops, black budget kind of things for the FBI. Well, let me just come out and let you know, he is who was in Spectrum and kind of manages or is the handler for August Burke, and would be, as we see at the end of that book, kind of forming a team there. He also is going to be managing a guy you might be familiar with called Ackerman. Now, Ackerman is going to kind of fall under Carter's purview, which means we're definitely going to see that character from Spectrum. Let's just say there's probably a good chance that we might see other characters from Spectrum. And so all my books take place in this same kind of universe. So there's a really good chance that we might see a Deacon Monroe pop up in one of these spin-off books. Incidentally, Blind Justice, which was really, for me, I'm a little behind the scenes here, really for me was supposed to be like the big one. When I was writing that book, I really felt like that was just a really cool character, really cool idea. I really thought that was going to be my kind of breakout book. And honestly, it hasn't really taken off the way that I had hoped. Done okay with it, but actually my biggest market, or one of my biggest markets, which would be Germany, the book isn't available in German. And so the German publisher had passed. At that time, the Shepard hadn't even come out yet there in Germany, so they didn't want to kind of dilute the brand, because Blind Justice is a little bit different, a little more action adventure. But so I don't know. I don't know what's going to be happening with that book or that series. Spectrum did come out over in Germany, was a hit. I haven't really discussed with them whether we can see a sequel to that. I was hoping that we would get to actually go to South Africa, and kind of this, that the sequel to Spectrum would be Kruger, basically the team going after Kruger, and through him, if you remember, there was sort of this, in Spectrum, there was this one villain that was kind of behind the scenes. He was, this kind of pulling the strings, Moriarty kind of villain, named Mobius, and or just code name, obviously. And the hope is that we will get to go to South Africa and see Kruger, the hunt for Kruger, and then that would probably turn into the hunt for Mobius. Now, whether we'll actually get to see that or not, I don't know, honestly, where that's going to go. But I can tell you for sure that the characters from those books are going to pop up in other books. I actually just had an idea the other day that I was just kind of going along and, popped, and I scratched it down in my notebook. That was an idea that would connect Ackerman and Deacon Monroe. So, who knows? Hopefully we'll get to see that soon. So thank you, Bill and Chris, for your questions. Our next question, actually, there were 3 of you who had asked this. We have Mert Turkin, Patsy Marr, and Sabine Bayer. And Sabine, actually, some of your questions were ones that we chose to push back into the second part. So I will be answering a few more of the questions you had asked in that second part. So what Mert and Patsy and Sabine were wanting to know were motivation, inspiration for Ackerman. Anyone I looked up, research on serial killers. So, the questions here were sort of similar. And so basically, what I'm getting that you guys are kind of looking for is, when I created the Shepard, when I created Ackerman, was there, a series that I looked to, a character or a real life killer, a Ted Bundy, of course, you can't kind of, he would be the big one that would kind of have that. But Ackerman's also not a psychopath, so, Bundy was a psychopath. So you get into Ackerman, doesn't really fall into, he's an amalgam of all of these different ones. I really, when I created him, I sat out to create this really great villain. I mean, I wanted him to be, I don't even remember if this movie was out yet, but I wanted him to be Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight. I wanted him to be just this, not even just imposing in every way, and so I came up with this idea of having him going through all of the things that his father had done. All of these experiments that he had done on his son, damaging his son's brain, torturing him in all these ways. And basically what his father, through his experimentation, through his brokenness, had wanted to inflict on his son every possible terrible thing that had happened to every killer and villain, and just every bad thing he could do to him, and then measure the results and see what it would take to create this perfect killing machine. So obviously, and Ackerman, as he grows up and escapes from his father and goes out on his own, he starts, this during the dark years, he starts making homages to other killers and really paying tribute to this kind of these people who he almost sees as his forefathers, So how did I learn about all that stuff? Well, lots and lots of books. That would be the biggest answer. And of course, documentaries on killers. You can find all kinds of things on serial killers on Netflix and YouTube and all that kind of thing. But back when I wrote the Shepard, I don't even know if we had that stuff. That's how terrible. And I look back on that, and we probably did. I think we had. I think it would have had like YouTube and stuff. I don't know if it had the good documentaries or not. And we actually did not have Netflix. But that's beside the point. But I grabbed at some of the books that I had actually remembered reading when I was doing the Shepard. And so I'm just going to grab some, show them to you, give you an idea. This Dark Dreams, Roy Hazelwood and Stephen G. McCod, authors of The Evil That Men Do. Oh, I think I actually had read The Evil That Men Do along with this, but that one wasn't there with it on my shelf. So I'm just, really, there's tons of these that I had read, for not just then, but continue to read. I mean, either myself or my assistant Allison. But that's really, if you're an aspiring writer, that's a big part of it, is research. And it's definitely the iceberg principle, where here's all the research you had to do, and this is the part that's sticking up above the water. Maybe if you just think of the can here, if that's the part that's sticking above the water, and this is all the research you had to do, that's all it shows. That's all that makes it into the book, is that little portion. But anyway, this is a legendary FBI profiler, examines homicide and the criminal mind. We've got Obsession, John Douglas and Mark Alshocker. I grabbed this one out just because it's a big recommendation. This is the movie version. I don't know. Apparently I did read the movie version. But anyway, Red Dragon. So this is one of the best serial killer examples to me. So when I started out, that's one I read as kind of inspiration. Mindhunter. A lot of people would probably be familiar with that. I haven't watched it, but I think they did some series on Netflix or something about that one. Killers, the most barbaric murderers of our times. You can see we're marked all through these books. And here is one that I actually remember being a really great one that I would definitely recommend on the subject. The Definitive History of the Phenomenon of Serial Murder. Pardonnez-moi. The Phenomenon of Serial Murder. Serial Killers, The Method and Madness of Monsters by Peter Vronsky. So yeah, that's a great one. I would definitely recommend it. And here, there's lots of, I guess I grabbed this one just to show you. You can find lots of these kind of things at Barnes & Noble or your local bookstore. The true crime books. I've got tons of them, and that's really where I looked for inspiration for Ackerman, because he's not just one character. He's like an amalgam of all these different ones rolled into one, but the shell that he's rolled into was also one that, who knows who he could have been. I mean, he's got an IQ higher than Einstein. He's because of what he's done, his father's done to him, he's incapable of fear, but, he wasn't born that way. He wasn't born with a lot of the things that he's been born with. So would he have been a Marcus? Would he have been, we don't know. How would he have turned out? But when you throw all those monsters into the crib with this incredibly intelligent, possibly even autistic child, you get a pretty interesting character, I guess is where I'm going with that. So that's what I tried to do. I really can't point to like a single killer or incident or something that gave me inspiration. Really, he was inspired by just serial killers. He was inspired by the entire serial killer phenomenon. So thank you for your questions. We're gonna wrap this up with one final question, and then I'm gonna be getting to the second part here later in the week. So this question is from Pia Tetzloff, and her question is kind of related to the one from earlier about seeing Ackerman or Marcus on the big screen or small screen. She asks, who is an actor that I would like to see play Ackerman? Now this one's a little tough for me. This is people. I'm a huge movie fan, so I'm a giant movie buff. When I go to a movie, I just immerse myself in it. I don't even, the rest of the world stops, and I'm in the movie. And that brings a lot of really good inspiration for me from a writing perspective. But I don't typically think of actors in regard to my characters. Now I will sometimes, especially on like a minor character, because it's just a quick fix. It's a cheat for me, that I can picture this actor or actress in that role, and then just describe them and move on. But especially for the main characters, who I really try not to describe as much. I try to keep them more vague, because I want people to make them their own a little bit. That's the thing about art. Art is in the eye of the beholder. So hopefully my books could be considered art, and so I just try to let that be in the eye of the beholder for those kind of primary characters. But back to your question, an actor for Ackerman. The guy that always comes to mind, that I just kind of think, man, here's someone who could really shine in this role, and that is Michael Fassbender. Now, you might know him from Magneto, the Assassin's Creed movie. He's a great actor. Been in lots of movies. Can definitely pull off the role. Maybe you would have to bulk up a little bit. Maybe you would have to, go to some places that he really hasn't been before, because I think Magneto is a great character, but he's kind of that standard villain. He hasn't really, I don't think I've seen that really kind of just crazy villain from him, but I think he could really do a great job with Ackerman. So, and there are a lot of other actors out there that could really do a great job. That's the thing that I guess makes it a difficult question for me, is that it's not about who would look good, who would do this, who would, it's about, man, I could see them transforming themselves. I could see this actor doing their job so well that they transform themselves into that character. And I think there are a lot of really talented actors out there in Hollywood right now that I'm sure could transform themselves into that character and really surprise you. I mean, of course, the ultimate example of that is like a Michael Keaton, when he became Batman and all this, and arguably the best Batman. So yeah, and not even Michael Keaton, look at Desperate Measures. If you haven't seen Desperate Measures, Michael Keaton could have been Ackerman very, very easily. I mean, he's just a great actor. obviously too old now for that part. But so I guess my point is, while Fassbender is definitely the guy that jumps to my mind, I think there are a lot of great actors out there that could fill that role. So I hope that answers your question, Pia. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. This has been the first kind of episode, I guess we could say, of Ask Ethan Anything. If you have any more questions, just go ahead and send them to us. I think we're going to just start doing this as a sort of a regular segment. So you got the questions, hit us up with them, and we will answer them in another video just like this. Have a great week.